Hi, and welcome back. I'm excited to share kind of a newer twist on taking some guided notes with your students. So, I will say, as a former social studies teacher, I am showing you a social studies example. And when I taught middle school and high school, I was always trying to think of ways to support student note taking, partly because it's pretty higher order thinking to help students organize a lot of information. And there's a lot of historical information they needed to know in my class, but I didn't always have the experience to know the best way of organizing it for them. So sometimes I would give my students guided notes with some different ways to format it. And this is just basically another way that you can do that with students in Google Docs specifically. So this is something that's available to all the teachers in my district. We have some advanced Google features, including smart chips. And I think this is something that most other Google account types can do. But the idea is that if you're having students take notes in a Google Doc, they're taking digital notes, you can set up some almost fill in the blank spaces to draw their attention to it with the smart chips variables. So I had two examples I'm going to show you. One is that I have made on a topic that I used to teach, and then another is one that I pulled from the internet from a wonderful person named Megan Mongelli. She shared this. She has lots of really good Google tips if you wanted to give her a follow. So, Roaring 20s is something I used to teach with my high school students. So let's just imagine like I have this note-taking guide set up, and this is actually a note-taking template from Google's new template library in Google Docs. So if you're curious about that, if you just open docs.new and there's a little template button across the top, you can explore there or just search Google Docs templates and it kind of fills in some of this information. So it puts my name here, my teacher, I can put my subject area. If your students kind of keep like a running log of their notes for a unit, this can certainly help chunk that. I can put a date right here if I need to. This is already pre-programmed, like I did not have to do any of this yet. So maybe I put the date there if I need it. But the cool part is that I built this table. So if I wanted to share this out with my students, this is the piece that I had to build out already. But if you notice, I have some spaces here that are kind of like fill in the blank, but a little bit different. So the idea is that you're drawing the students' attention to that area and they're looking for key information. So a couple of different ways you can do this. I was just having students list out some information. I gave them some resources up here, some slides or a guided reading, and then they go through and they're listing some of these characteristics and qualities about these two different time periods in women's history and just some of the characteristics that are there. So for this, to set these up, it's super easy. So if I actually want to change this and maybe I want my students to list 4 characteristics for each one, it's very easy to do. So I'll just do the @ symbol and then I'll start typing variable. And that's what this chip is. So if I click variable, I'll do insert new variable. And then for this one, I was just calling them like Gibson girl characteristic. That's always a word that I struggle to spell. Characteristic 4, and now it pops over here. So I'm going to move myself a little so you can see this. So what's nice is that whenever students go and they start to type in these characteristics, they can pop it over here in a side window and see all of them at once. They're not scrolling up and down the page, and it's a space for them to share their insights. So maybe on this, maybe I say like more conservative dress, longer dresses as that first characteristic. All right. And when I filled that out, it's no longer blue. The blue kind of means that there still needs to be some context added there. All right. And maybe over here, I put I can just keep going and going and going. So that's how you add to the space here. That's also where I can add new ones, just that @ symbol and start typing variable and then new variable chip. So here's just a social studies example, very simple kind of note-taking guide. But I've also seen this where instead of kind of making these open-ended characteristics ones, maybe there's vocab words you want the students to apply. So maybe you list out a couple of vocab words and they have to pick the correct one to apply it. In this example over here, this is for a high school ELA class, and they're looking at transcendentalism versus dark romanticism, which that sounds super exciting. I would love to be in this class and discuss this. I love reading these types of stories. But basically they had dates here, and they even gave less scaffolding than what I did. They just put some spaces here with numbers, and when you click that number, that's where you type out your response. So perhaps the teacher has slides or some information, and the number of the slide is what corresponds with that information on here. So just helping the students make sense of a lot of information at once. This one's also using DocTab. So if I go over here, I can see the next section of this lesson was post reading. So the students are reflecting on what they read. They read a Ralph Waldo Emerson. Self-reliance was the little bit of reading they did, and they were supposed to look for quotes, fill out those spaces. So it's just adding a little bit more scaffolding to note-taking by numbering some of these spaces, guiding students through it a little bit more, just another option there for your kiddos, especially if you're using Google Docs to do a lot of note-taking anyway. Maybe you show students how to do this, you give them a version of this where you've scaffolded some of those variable chips out, and could be a good option for them, or to accommodate some of the different note-taking styles you already have in there, especially if students have that written in on their IEP that they need a different style of note-taking. This could be a really good fit for them as well. So thought I would show you that. If you have more Google tips or questions, things you want addressed, please let me know. Thanks.